Mother's Day was fantastic. Good, especially that is vegan. Now we have more. Call me if you need one.
Thank you all for coming. We have a program for you, and Sandra Bell, co-director of PRISM, is going to be mistress of ceremonies and introduce our speakers. So without any further ado, here is Sandra Bell.
Thank you so much for coming. I'm going to read because I'm emotional. And I wasn't able to focus on learning my lines. So I'm going to read it for the most part. Welcome. We come together today, those who dearly love Coby Siegenthaler, to honor and celebrate her life. Coby was a beloved wife and a devoted mother. She was a dedicated and energetic environmental, animal, vegan, health advocate. As most of you know, she and husband Hans were for decades out on the streets supporting every important organization making a stand for dire issues. And Coby continued without missing a beat for the past 15 years since Hans passed in 2003. A week before her passing, Coby said, "Yes, I'm a healthy horse," when she was told by her general practitioner that it was amazing that she had no high blood pressure, she had no high cholesterol, and no sign of diabetes and no lumps in her body. Coby responded that because I live on plant food and because nothing from an animal is why I'm healthy. Her vegetarian doctor decided right then and there to look into a vegan diet. Woo-hoo! The affliction that took dear Coby from us was heart failure due to sudden worsening of a leaky heart valve. She was told by a heart surgeon several years ago that she had a small leak, but that people who do can live for years with that. He also explained that the operation was risky and that she would have to decide what she wanted to do. She was conflicted for a while and asked everybody and asked different doctors and different friends what they thought. But when a close friend of hers passed away a few weeks after that heart valve operation, she decided against it. We thought we would have Coby with us another 7 years at least. To celebrate her 100th, I was looking forward to giving her a big bash, but we didn't. We won't have her in spirit, in body, but we will always have her in spirit. Her passing came as a shock because she spent a very usual day answering mail, reading and watching TV, her favorite shows. Ramin and Lindsay fixed her a nice, healthful dinner and sat with her around the table, visiting and eating and laughing. Later, they had a bit of vegan ice cream in the living room. At around 9 p.m., her usual bedtime, she retired to her room. Shortly thereafter, she called Ramin, saying she was having some pains in her chest. He helped her to lie down on her bed, where she immediately became unresponsive. Right away, Ramin, who was always right there for her, right there, he called me every time she needed anything. He did so much for her. He called me, first he called 911. They came very quickly and did the best best to revive her that they possibly could. But she went directly to heaven, straight away. She always said to me, Sandra, the people who pass in their sleep, I sign up for that. And I said, I hope that all of us get that. You know, it's the nicest way. She almost got it. She did have a little bit of pain, but right away she was taken. She was taken, and it wasn't very long at all. Coby, if you're here with us now, I hope you are feeling all the love we have for you. And surely you know that there are many more who would be here if they could today. Rest in peace and power, sweet angel. Thank you. The next person that's going to take the stage will be a dear close friend of Coby's for many, many years, a beautiful woman that I've known for years too, who understands so much about health, about salsa dancing, and all kinds of wonderful things. And she's been on the forefront of putting on events and presenting celebrities and putting the vegan message out. And I'd like to now turn this over to the talk by Marr Nealon.
Thank you, Sandra. Sandra has been the best friend to Coby through her entire life. No one has known Coby and been active with Coby as long as Sandra. And I'm grateful to Sandra. I met Sandra early on in the movement, and she taught me about the dangers of vaccines, and I trusted her knowledge so much. The moment she told me, I didn't need to hear more than one sentence, and I was on board. So I'm grateful to Sandra, and I know Coby was grateful for Sandra. Every single one of us in this room tonight is extremely lucky because every one of us met and knew Coby Siegenthaler. We had her energy in our lives. We experienced her exuberance, her love for life, her zest for living, her enjoyment of fellow compassionate activists. I'm only sad today for the people who didn't have that experience, who never had her touch their life, who didn't get to know Coby. Whether you knew her for a short time or for decades, she filtered into your energy system and made you happier and made you stand taller and made you happier to be alive and prouder to be an activist. What a joy, what a gift to have Coby in our lives. She was the true superwoman, the Energizer Bunny, a force of nature, the matriarch of our movement, and a second mom to so many of us. I can't remember life before Coby. I really can't. I've known her so long. I don't know what life before Coby was. Seems like she was always there. We always thought she would be there. We all had this crazy notion she would live forever. We know that's not possible, but I think we were all in denial and just totally expected her to continue going forever. Wouldn't that be nice? But she does get to go on forever through all of us, through the energy she dispersed to all of us. I have to say, when Cupid did her work with Coby and Hans when they were teenagers, she did a very good job. She created the first power couple. The power couple of the vegan movement. Those two together from teenage years on did so much, not only for the animal rights movement, for the Green Party, for population control, for liberation of all beings who are suppressed. They were for all the right causes. And their bond was so deep, it was really beautiful to watch. They were together about 50 years by the time Hans passed. And I remember one time, I think around their, 40th or 45th wedding anniversary, the two of them were sitting on the couch together, literally elbow to elbow, scrunched together at the corner of the couch. It was so cute. And Coby, as usual, was telling a story in her bouncy, exuberant way. And Hans was just staring at her and smiling so big, and his eyes were twinkling with love just pouring out at her. And she, out of the corner of her eye, caught him watching her. And she blushed and she giggled like a schoolgirl. I felt like I was watching teenagers in love. It was so inspiring. And that feeling they had for each other just carried on until the moment he passed. It was very difficult for her to go on without him, but being such a strong, tough cookie, she rallied and kept going, doing her work and being practical and getting things done. They also started, the very first vegan bed and breakfast. Whenever an activist would be passing through for lectures or a conference, it was not, could they stay? It was just, let me check the calendar and see if I'm already booked. And if she was, there was always the couch. There was always room for more. So lots of people got to know Coby and Hans that way and enjoy the fruit of their garden and their pool and go out and pull some weeds with Coby in the garden. Howard and Michael are here today, and they certainly have spent a lot of time at the Siegenthaler household. Michael Klaper and Howard Lyman, two of her adopted sons. If you showed up on her doorstep, you had better show up hungry and thirsty. Because before your second foot was in the door, Coby would be jumping up off the couch from where she was probably needle pointing or sewing or reading or handwriting a letter. And she'd be running off to the kitchen to make you some fake coffee in her sweet little Dutch accent. Or give you some fruit or macadamia nuts from her garden, or some ice cream made from frozen persimmons from her garden, or cookies she had made the day before. One way or another, you were going to eat. And if you helped her in the kitchen, you had better not waste one little bit of produce. I loved that about her. She was very practical, very thrifty, and that was set inside her very early on because of how her family struggled during the war and the Depression, and they would scrounge in trash cans for potato peels. So she learned not to waste anything. It's up to us to emulate her joie de vivre, to carry her beautiful energy with us so that her memory goes forth through each of us. Her magic dropped into every one of you. Please keep that alive and share it, and it will keep you more energized and exuberant the way Coby was. I'm sure, like me, a lot of you feel the same. Knowing Coby Siegenthaler made me a better person. I will not say rest in peace. I will say rest in power. You were a powerful woman, Coby. We honor you, we love you, we appreciate you. We will carry your memory forth forever. Namaste, Coby Siegenthaler. Namaste.
Thank you, Marr. And now it's very fitting that after Marr will come a beautiful gentleman who's led this movement for vegan environment and health for years and years and years, and she worked very closely with him. He was one of Coby's adopted sons in spirit. Matt Cowboy, Mr. Howard Lyman.
Welcome. What a fantastic time to come and celebrate the fact that we all knew one of the most exceptional people that has ever lived on the face of the earth.
Yes.
You know, we might as well lay it out the way it was. She was the Mother Teresa of the critters. Each one of us here today realized that Coby was different. They broke the mold when she was born. But her mother was like that. Back in Holland during the Second World War, the Germans decided all of the Jews had to wear a yellow star. Coby's mother did not think that was a right thing to do, and so she put on a yellow star. Well, needless to say, the Gestapo arrested her. And they said, "We looked into your background, you are not Jewish." And she says, "Well, are you sure all of the rest are?" They told her, they said, "If you don't take that off, we are going to put you and your children in jail until you decide to take it off." If they'd have made that offer to Coby, she'd still be in jail. What an individual. You know, if today Coby was sitting in her home doing some needlepoint on the couch, and there was a rattlesnake coiled up on the floor, the first thing that would come to Coby's mind is, "I wonder if it's hungry." She loved critters. And if you happen to be a human she considered to be a critter, you were all right. Almost 30 years ago, I ended up at the gate, rang the bell, 11 o'clock at night, and out came Coby. I'd never seen her before. I'd never heard of her. All I had was an address. That was enough for Coby. I was there. "Come on in, let's have something to eat." She was the kind of person that if the spare room was taken, she would be more than willing for her to sleep on the couch and you could have her bed. You're an amazing individual. It was all about critters. I can remember there were 2 photographs that I saw of Coby that are still in my mind, and they will be there until I take my last breath. The first one is Hans and Coby at an animal rights gathering, walking down the sidewalk, Coby in front, Hans coming along behind, carrying her purse. And the other one was 79 years old. Coby is in a wire cage to show people how much room a chicken has when they are in a cage. Can you imagine that? 79 years old. If I did that, I would be in that cage forever. But Coby had her faults. She was not good electronically. I don't know how many times Jeff had to go down and straighten out her computer. And it usually lasted for at least 3 or 4 hours before she had it screwed up again. She was great with the telephone if she hadn't lost her hearing aids. She thought that maybe learning sign language would have been a lot better than for her to try and put up with hearing aids. I can remember going to her house one time, and it was in fruit season. A lot of orange trees over there. I walked in the door. She has a 55-gallon garbage can full of oranges. She had walked up and down the street picking up all of the oranges that were laying on the ground and took them home, and had already squeezed 5 gallons of fresh orange juice. You know what she said to me? You sure you wouldn't like a little orange juice? You know, when they wrote a dictionary and they came to the word frugal, it said Coby Siegenthaler. She was never a person to discard something. There was always a way that it could be made to work. We could do something else with it. Or maybe technology will come along and we could fix it later. She had a great aversion to throwing away anything. And human souls were the same. She always thought, there's a way. You know, they don't get it now, but maybe the next time. Who knows? She didn't have to worry because she could turn that task over to Michael Klaper. And she told me, she said, oh, can you imagine? In my house, I have a doctor, a vegan doctor. I'm going to replicate him. I feel honored to have known Coby. I never, in the 30 years that I know her, ever heard her say a bad word about anyone. She'd always say, oh, you know, kiddo, they might change. They might get it. It could happen. Just look at how much better the critters are off today than they were last year. She was one of the great eternal optimists in the world. And I truly believe the reason that Coby's not with us today is St. Peter was up there and said, God, with all these critters we got up here now, we better get somebody here to help us. Get Coby. Join with me, celebrate one of the greatest women that ever lived and one of the greatest humans that has ever lived. And if we could just try to do part of what she attempted to teach us, it'll be a better world. Thank you, Coby.
Washington, where he lives. Thank you. Our next speaker will be a very open-hearted, beautiful, long-time animal activist and conscious person. She opened her own sanctuary called the New Life Sanctuary in Elsinore, and it was basically to be for vivisected animals because there was a need for that, and now she's just opened her heart and her sanctuary to just about every kind of abused and neglected and abandoned animal. Miss Gina Lynn.
Thank you. Like everyone here, I feel honored to have known Coby. I met her when I was 17 and was coming out to LA for animal rights protests, and just like everyone has said, she was always there, she was always at the front, she was always where she could be most visible. Even in the rain, she'd have an umbrella in one hand, her cane in the other, and a sign somehow in between. If she had it hanging around her neck, she was going to be where she was seen, while everyone else would be cowered under the awnings, and she was just like, no, that's where the people are, I've got to be over there, I don't care if it's raining. And that's just how she was, as we all know. And I love the story. I think it was about 1995. I was in jail for protesting fur, and Coby came to visit me at the jail, and she had cookies and soup that she had made, and she said, I gave this to the jailers, and I asked them to give it to you, and they won't give it to you. And it was just so Coby, how sweet and naive she was, that she didn't understand why the jailers wouldn't give me home-cooked food from the outside. And I was on a hunger strike anyway, so I wouldn't eat it anyway, but I think of that fondly. I think of Coby fondly, like we all do, and as Sandra said, I have a sanctuary now in Lake Elsinore, and in December, this past December, 2 months ago, we had a big gala, and we gave out 3 awards. One to DeRose, one to Aaron Leiter, and one to Coby. And it was just a wonderful honor, and I just want to share it with you. It's sitting on the table over there. It was just a wonderful honor to have her at my sanctuary after so many years of me looking up to her, and then she got to come and meet the animals there that we've rescued from laboratories and from other places. And we have a pig rescued from a laboratory named Coby, after Coby. And I very much regret that night I didn't have the time to take her and make sure that she got to meet Coby. That Coby Siegenthaler got to meet Coby Pig. So I regret that, but it was just an honor to give this to her, and an honor to have her at my sanctuary, and we'll always love and miss Coby, and truly the world is a better place for having her in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. Thank you for making such a nice December for her. She was so elated, and she says, me? She didn't understand why she was getting an honor, but I think it meant a lot to her. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is the doctor in the house, another adopted son of Coby Siegenthaler, who she loved dearly, dearly, and turned to him many times with questions. And he stayed with her, as Howard Lyman did many times when he was coming through town and going to many, many speaking engagements, changing the world. Miss Dr. Michael Klaper.
Thank you. And I see what Howard and Marr were saying, that everybody in this room has a little piece of Coby. Their lives are different and better because we've been touched by her. In 1984, I gave a speech on behalf of the animals in front of the Federal Building in Los Angeles. And it was the first time I'd ever been in Los Angeles, and one of the first activist events that I did on behalf of the animals. And unbeknownst to me, in the audience were Coby and Hans. And about a year later, I was moving from Florida out to California. I really didn't know where I was going to be staying. I had to come through Los Angeles on my way up to Santa Cruz to work with John Robbins to establish this EarthSave organization. But I had to spend a few weeks in Los Angeles, buy a car, and get my life together for California chapter. And word came to me that, don't worry, there's a place for you to stay in Los Angeles. They'll meet you at the airport. And you don't know them, they know you. Some things you just accept on faith. So I got on the plane, and as I came down the jetway, there were Coby and Hans with those 1,000-watt smiles, and embraced me like their long-lost son, that of course I was. I just didn't know it at that time. And that began many wonderful encounters and evenings, and I wound up living at their house for a number of months later on.
and became indeed part of their family, and get up every morning and that wonderful table would be spread with a wonderful vegan breakfast. And it was such an air of normalcy and of love and of familial stability. I mean, they grew up in the 40s, you know, where people were still semi-sane and talked to each other and dined together at the same table and had mutual experiences. And I was bathing in that continuity. And it was a gift just to be in the sanctuary of sanity that they provided. And of course, it was all about love. Coby was never shy about manifesting that, and that's what all of us are about, and that's what our work for the animals are about, and we all know that. It's the worst kept secret in the world. And Coby and Hans manifested it so beautifully, and Coby, well, just look at the picture, and you can see she knows all about love. And it was her openness to give that love to anybody who came into her purview, and we all are the beneficiaries of that, of course. But also is the consistency. If I had to think of a couple of adjectives to put on Coby Siegenthaler, it would have to be consistency and integrity. Certainly, as is evident to all of us, the consistency of her love. I never saw her in a bad mood. There was always, as Marr and Howard have made very clear, you couldn't walk within 50 feet of the house without something placed in your hand that's edible and delicious. And the nurturing, we all saw that. And living with them and being aware that Coby's life was touched by tragedy. And they lost their son Hugo as a boy, as a teenager in a motor vehicle accident. And you never recover from that injury and that deficit. And it changes you, and it creates a hole that's never truly filled in. But she clearly took the pain from that loss and used it to turbocharge her giving on behalf of the animals, on behalf of everyone in need of that love. But drilling down even further beyond her love and her consistency and her loving through her pain was the consistency that she had in her character that manifested on behalf of the animals. Talk about a staunch ethical vegan. Boy, she never wavered. Was not a question in her mind. And everyone was the beneficiary of her love. And I never saw her harden or hold it back except for that few seconds when she would talk about those monsters. Those monsters that experiment on the animals. They're monsters. And she knew that, and she meant that. And I can see how much it meant to her. And I could see that where that focus came from, and I respected that tremendously. It came from such a pure place in her heart, like everything else did. And so for her consistency, that despite her pain, despite the pain of the world, despite the pain of the animals, despite the pain of her own loss, that she chose love every time. She chose to give her gift of love to everyone who came within her vision, within her purview. That is a gift. That example is a gift to all of us. And I take Coby's gift every day to when I feel like drawing into myself or feeling sorry for myself. What would Coby do? Coby would smile and say, "Come here." And give you a big hug, and then something to eat. So I can't cook, I won't give you anything to eat, but I'll certainly give you a big hug, and know that it's compliments of Coby. Thank you, Coby, we love you.
Thank you, Michael. Next on our program will be someone that's amazing who's just led this animal rights. His organization has led animal rights in this city and all over the place for years and years and years, and I've enjoyed knowing him and attending his demonstrations and his protests and all of his events. DeRose, last year's grant.
LCA did a lot of demonstrations, and not one did Coby ever miss. And when Hans was with us, Hans was there every time too. And you're right, Howard, right behind Coby carrying the purse. She was amazing. She's always positive. I would see her talking to the police, and she's carrying on her own negotiations and talking to them about what's going on inside the laboratories or what's going on about veganism. She would be talking to the doctors at UCLA. She was a great voice for animal rights, for veganism. She was amazing. One of the times we had up at our office, up on a roof, we had 75, 80 people come up for a presentation of this vegan company. Well, the vegan company went through all their stuff, you know, all their products. And this is about 25 years ago. And she said, the guy got down to about the 18th product, and she says, she's raising her hand. So I said to the guy, I said, you better answer her. And so he answers her, she says, that product is not totally vegan. It's about the 8th thing down in it somewhere. How she found out, I don't know, because I thought we screened this guy pretty good. Sure enough, she was right. It wasn't 100% vegan, the one product of the 18. But she knew about it. She went in there, she was prepared. If there's one thing that woman knew, she knew how to do her research and knew what she was talking about. When she said something, you know she knew what she was talking about. Just recently, we were honored at Gina's sanctuary, and as Gina said, it was me, Aaron, and Coby. And Coby sat right next to me, and she was sitting there as valiant as can be. This is only, not that many weeks ago, 2 months? 2 months ago. She's sitting there, she's just cold, she was cold, and she was shaking, and I looked. So, don't ask me why I wore this jacket tonight, but I wore the same jacket. Maybe because it's the only jacket I own. But I gave it to Coby to wear. She didn't want to hear it. I said, I made her wear it. And all the time, about every 15, 20 minutes, in a couple of hours that we were there, 2, 3 hours, she asked me if I wanted my jacket back because I might be cold. And I said, no, Coby, you wear that jacket. That's the person, there's not a person in this room that wouldn't give their shirt off the back to this woman. And yes, we will all carry on when we demonstrate, when we confront people. Coby will always be there. She will always, always be there. She'll be in our hearts, she'll be in our minds, and she really will be there. I promise you she'll be there. Thank you very much, and thank you, Coby.
Our last part of the program of speaking or performing will be a dear man who I've grown to love so dearly. He shared the caregiving duties in the last couple of months when Coby needed to go to the doctor, or she wasn't taking interest too much in cooking, and we would make sure she got fresh salad every day and got protein, nice mock chicken salad like we'll have later here. Ramin Saber needed a place to stay, and I called Coby and told her, and she said, bring him on over. And he ended up being just a wonderful, wonderful help to her. He drove her when I couldn't. We shared the duties of things that needed to be done, taking her to doctors, making sure she was, got all the goodies she liked from Follow Your Heart, everything. He's a piano teacher, and he would play in the morning on her little piano. And when I'd come to take her to lunch, she would be humming and humming and humming. She says, I'm singing this, it's in my head. It's in my head that Ramin plays this, and I really like this piece called Granada. And Ramin has consented to come sit at the piano and play Coby's music that was in her head a lot of the days. Ramin Saber.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my honor to be here celebrating Coby's life with you. What many people don't know about Coby, that she was a big connoisseur and lover of classical music, and the Romantic period happened to be her favorite. She loved the lyrical melodies, as Sandra mentioned. She used to hum along a lot of melodies that I played. So this is one of such pieces, Granada by Jacoba.
for Coby. It was put together by Britt Lind, People for Reason in Science and Medicine, my partner, and Jeff Fleiss, who's our go-to guy for videos. So we will be turning the lights off, right? And then Britt will come back up after to say a few closing words, and then there will be other things going on here too. So without further ado, here is our Coby Siegenthaler memorial video.
Jacoba de Crasto was born June 7th, 1925, to vegetarian parents in Amsterdam. Her father died when she was 7, and her younger brother was killed in an auto accident at age 3. Coby's mother supported her children as an art teacher and was a talented artist herself. When the war came and the Germans invaded Holland, it was a frightening time for the family. The Germans took over Coby's home, and the family was forced to move into a tiny apartment. Her mother hid Jewish friends in their attic, but it was not a safe place, and some of them left or disappeared, probably discovered and killed or taken to concentration camps. Food was scarce, and many people starved to death, even dropping dead in the streets. But Coby's family remained vegetarians, even if it meant eating less. In 1945, Holland was liberated by the British and the Canadians, and Europe began to rebuild. Coby went to school to become a nurse and was proud of her independence and her athleticism. Then, the stars aligned in perfect order, and she met fellow vegetarian and animal lover Hans Siegenthaler. And after a long courtship, he asked her to marry him. "I can't marry you," Coby protested. "I want to be free and travel the world." "One does not exclude the other," Hans replied. "We'll travel together." So she married her best friend Hans, and that was the beginning of life's journey as two incredible soulmates who traveled the four corners of the world together. Daughter Eleanor came along in 1953. Then son Hugo was born in 1955, and in 1956 they headed for America. The crossing by ship took 10 days, and then their dream of living in America became reality. They had friends living in Alabama, but Coby and Hans had heard of the terrible treatment of black people there, so they chose to live in liberal California instead. After living a few years in Linwood, the family eventually settled in Northridge, across the street from Riker Laboratories, where Hans worked, while Coby continued on with her nursing career. Coby loved the hot weather of California and having her very own swimming pool to swim in every day. She also had a very nice husband to enjoy it all with. Coby and Hans's priorities were first Nora and Hugo, and then furthering their passion for helping animals. Tragedy struck when Hugo, Coby's beloved son, was killed at age 24 in an auto accident, just like her little brother so many years before. She mourned Hugo's death her entire life. By the 1980s, Coby and Hans were deeply involved with working for several groups, including Farm, Last Chance for Animals, Suppress, and PRISM. At the same time, they loved getting together with friends and having vegan potlucks at their house. Of course, travel was an important part of their agenda, and that they did to all corners of the planet for all their decades together. In 1997, Coby and Hans received recognition from Last Chance for Animals for their dedication to animal rights. And in 2001, Hans took part in a celebration honoring his parents. They had risked their lives as part of the underground who helped Jews escape concentration camps and certain death. His parents' names are engraved on the honor wall in the Garden of the Righteous in Jerusalem. In 2002, Coby and Hans were honored by Farm for their lifetime of work for the animals. Sadly, Coby's beloved Hans died in 2003 after a lengthy illness. Coby missed him terribly, but continued her activism undeterred. She also continued to travel and live life to the fullest with new friends and old. Coby lost the last member of her immediate family in November of 2017 when her daughter Noor succumbed to cancer. In December of 2017, she and DeRose were given a banquet in their honor by New Life Sanctuary to recognize the achievements of these two unwavering, dedicated activists. Tragically, Coby did not live long enough to attend the memorial service for her daughter. She passed away a few weeks after Noor died, still courageously looking forward to spending the rest of her life helping animals and promoting veganism. We will miss her.
Hi, Coby. It's Tatiana. I just wanted to thank you for being such a dear friend for over 30 years. You have taught me compassion. You've inspired me. You have showered me with unconditional love. Thank you. I love you, and you will always be in my heart.
Coby, I've always admired your zest for being an animal activist, and you will be truly missed.
Thank you so much, Coby, for being such a force in our movement, and for your graciousness, your kindness, your generosity, your simple joy of life and people. She was always welcoming and such a great hostess. You will carry on in our hearts forever, Coby.
Coby Siegenthaler took me and my beautiful pit bull Valentina in when we couldn't find a place to live. Forever, Valentina and I are grateful to you, Coby.
before we partake of Sandra's great vegan food, I'd just like to say one more thing about Coby. That she did, among other things, the most important thing any activist can do. She showed up. Year after year, decade after decade. She was there, like DeRose said. The protests, the vegan fest, tabling, leafleting, whatever it was, she would show up. No excuses. She never said, oh, I'm too old now, I'm 90 years old, I can't do this anymore. Let young people take over, I'll stay home and pass around petitions on the internet. No, she showed up. And also, like Chris said, she was fearless. She talked to anybody about anything. She was not intimidated by anybody, because after all, she had put up with Nazis for 5 years in her home. Nobody could intimidate her. She actually wanted to go to the Coleman walks and runs. Now, most activists, they don't want to go. She wanted to. She wore this button. This is her no pink ribbon button. She wore it every single day. And when the pink people would come up to us and threaten us with bodily harm or swear at us or say terrible things at us and say they're going to put us in the hospital, it didn't faze Coby one bit. She would just say, these people torture animals. You shouldn't be giving them your money. And she'd leaflet them, she'd give them the leaflet, they'd take it, they probably read it, and maybe didn't even come back the next year. That was who she was. She showed up, no excuses, and she was fearless. Now we invite you to partake of vegan food and drink. And we know that Coby's spirit is here because, like Marr said, there is nothing she loved better than being a hostess. So enjoy. And we also want to say that we're live streaming this service on Jacoba de Mitchell's Facebook. And if you want to get interviewed, the interviews will be set up over here and you can share your feelings about Coby online. Okay, go ahead, enjoy, and that's it for our service. Thank you all for coming.